Good evening. My name is Jimmy Tucker, as you know, and this is my final presentation tied to my final paper that I will be submitting in tangent with this. I chose to entitle this presentation, the slides, as well as my paper, The Next Revolution, and I'm going to actually share my screen now of my slides as I present, and I'll come back to myself a little bit later. But let me start by sharing so you can see the slides. And I've called this The Next Revolution with a subtitle explaining and summarizing really what I am planning on presenting and discussing and what I've examined in my research. A new era in which big data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and information systems are paving the way to transform how we live, how we work, and how we think. Following the scientific method, I have several key words that were really the main concepts that I focused on and repeatedly: information systems, big data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, statistical applications, sustainability, and business process redesign. To summarize my abstract, I first explain how the world population, ever since 1800, has rapidly increased. 1800 was actually the first time the human population reached 1 billion. But now we are reaching over 1 billion people in approximately 13 years, I believe now. So currently we have 7.3 billion people, and it's expected to rise to 9.7 by 2050 and 11.2 billion by 2100. This rapid population growth will lead to various pressing issues throughout our country, throughout the region, as well as throughout the world. Some of those that I've highlighted are food security, accelerated depletion of finite resources, increased overall costs, increased energy consumption, and global warming. So the question that comes of this is, how can society ensure a sustainable way of life? In my research, I examined a number of the most promising and exciting developments that businesses and nation states are beginning to utilize that could result in achieving sustainability in the long run and addressing some of these issues and other issues that are not on this slide. The topics, as you saw in the key words, are big data analytics, information systems, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and statistical applications. So to begin, how I structured my paper is with a story. Arthur Samuel was an individual computer programmer, I believe, from IBM, who liked to play checkers. And he actually played checkers so much that he decided to design a computer program that allowed him to play checkers. And this was in the early 1950s. And eventually, I mean, he won every time against the computer, but eventually he created a sub-program where after every move, it would score the probability that a given board configuration would likely lead to a winning board versus a losing board. Arthur then let the computer play itself. And as it played itself, it collected more data. As it collected more data, it increased the accuracy of its prediction. Arthur would play the computer again and lost. Again and again and again. Arthur had created a machine that had surpassed his own ability in a game that he taught it. Now, the reason for this story is because it helps highlight what many are calling the early stages of a new revolution, where the changes will transform how organizations, nation states, and the individual will live and think. Now, Samuel's example reveals what an algorithm can do with some data. But the fact is, we live in an era where big data exists. It can be collected underground, underwater, in the sky, and in our pockets. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, which I don't touch on in too much detail, but I tie it to artificial intelligence, information systems, and statistical applications are all tools that can transform that big data into meaningful information exponentially quicker and more precise than humans. Now, specifically with big data, I thought this illustration actually highlights the capabilities that now exist on the 4 V's of big data: volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. I'm not going to elaborate on this in too much detail, but if you take a moment to actually read this slide, you'll have an idea of, with big data, and what capabilities are existing already in 2016 with leading companies. To conclude with this introduction, the author is going to examine how many of the above tools are being utilized across industry lines and country borders in an attempt to resolve some of their most pressing issues. The underlying questions that I'll go back to throughout and at the end is if these tools that are revolutionizing our society are leading to a more sustainable society, will result in more good than bad for humankind. So my analysis portion of this research was broken out and categorized into a few different industries and topics. The first industry that I examined, in which several applications of what I'm calling these next revolution tools, healthcare industry. The first example I use of how some of these tools are revolutionizing how we process, how we manage, how we make decisions can be found at a local level. An example of Conma Health Systems using big data analytics. They essentially conducted a business process redesign where they overhauled their record system, where medical records, patient and insurance billing, labs, and x-ray records were all integrated into a new system, which will allow doctors to view patient records through smartphones or other wireless devices. Example of a component that is being used in the healthcare industry that's basically causing a revolution is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, in the example I have, is being applied to health communications. A system was created where it would help make these health programs more human, adaptive, interactive, and emotionally expressive. And one final example I have of is in the application of machine learning and statistical tools. I found this one extremely interesting. It was from professors from the University of Pittsburgh, and they had computational algorithms that enabled machine learning approaches to become a pathway to deliver real-time intervention and improve smoking cessation. Many of these applications that I've tied to healthcare are being applied in a wide array areas, but it is all improving on health and well-being of society. The next industry that I focused on within my research was the energy sector. Just a few examples of what I elaborated on in the paper is the use of artificial intelligence, use of optimization and artificially intelligent algorithms that design, plan, and even deal with problems in hybrid energy systems. These hybrid energy systems combine renewable energy with traditional energy systems. And of course, this can't be understated either, how important facing the issues that will arise and are currently being faced within the energy sector about the growing energy usage by the increased population is a perfect example. Machine learning is another application that's research conducted to ensure reliable load demand forecasting of electricity through machine learning. So this is to try to refine the accuracy of demand forecasting of electricity. But machine learning, the research concluded that this machine learning did increase the accuracy through their analysis. I also elaborated on the environmental issues that many of these applications apply to try to create a more sustainable way of living for humans in society. One example is the application of artificial intelligence. Um, in the first bullet point, I highlighted how AI applications were used to forecast daily maximum ozone threshold exceedances. There's also another application I uncovered in my research, composed of artificial neural networks and fuzzy logic to simulate soil moisture changes with the objective of developing an optimal irrigation strategy. Now, there are other applications of these next revolution tools that can improve society. One of the ones that I found to be most intriguing was an AI system that was intended to resolve deep conflict and respond to humanitarian issues. It was dubbed CogSolve, and it was essentially something that was attempting to resolve something that has been a constant throughout, right, conflict. And for this CogSolve, the software and algorithms that were created within CogSolve was attempting to help understand how people from other groups view the world, simulate their reactions, and combine this with knowledge of the real world in order to negotiate, find peace, and protect emergency responders' health. Another application that I found extremely interesting as well is assistive technology for the blind. As you can see in the below picture I provided, this is a prototype technology based on computer vision and machine learning approaches that enable participants to walk across a room that are blind, and that will also, a participant can ask the system to identify objects in the user's field of view, and it will do that. It will allow you to also walk across a room to avoid any obstacles. Now, this machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the other applications that I've mentioned up to this point, these are just a few examples that I've provided, but this illustration really shows the depth and reach that many of these next revolution tools are providing throughout a variety of industries, disciplines, etc. So this is another one I encourage viewers to review to show just how significant of a reach. I'll point that out because this reach is growing rapidly, and others are concerned by this reach and the consequences of it. Stephen Hawking's, I have a quote of Stephen Hawking's there that says, "The development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race." So some questions I want to leave the listener with are these. There are numerous unforeseen consequences in any revolution that has ever existed in human history that can have damaging rippling effects. And some of the questions that have yet to be determined, I believe, are worth reflecting as I near the conclusion of my presentation. How have and how will these tools be used in military and defense? What are the short-term and long-term economic implications? More specifically, how will this impact jobs, local, national, global level? From a cultural perspective, how might this impact human identity? What about malfunctions? Who is liable if an algorithm dictates the action? What about corruption? What measures will be used to prevent corruption to occur? And will free will be challenged? I have here just a few other illustrations of some of the incredible technological advancements that are being applied in a variety of industries based on the applications that I'm identifying as the next revolution: tools, artificial intelligence, statistical tools, etc. As you can see, Boston Dynamics is teamed up actually with the Department of Defense, I believe, and was purchased by either Google or Amazon, where they have created artificial intelligence, robots that could potentially be used for warfare. Everything from a 6'3" machine robot called Atlas to animals such as the cheetah. They also have small fly-like machines that can crawl and can fly into spaces, primarily, again, for warfare. Again, keep in mind the question of the impact of this and the unforeseen consequences as well. Jeff Bezos on the bottom left-hand corner, using drones, which are also used on the military side for delivering packages, available commercially. And then finally, on the bottom right-hand corner, Tesla and many others are leading the way to automated vehicles. A lot of benefits, improved safety possibly, but also what are the consequences in that? So to conclude, this essay examined what has been identified by myself as the next revolution, a new era in which big data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, statistical tools, and information systems are paving the way to transform how we live, how we think. Numerous achievements, opportunities, and concerns have been raised within this presentation to allow the reader to reflect and interpret on their own. Regardless, it is the hope of the author to allow the reader or listener to understand that the next revolution is rapidly approaching us and will undoubtedly transform our world. The next concluding slides are just the references that were used in the paper as well as the presentation. So just to conclude, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation and look forward to your feedback. Thanks, and have a good night.